Welcome back to RGR Football. We're rounding out the week. I want you guys to get another taste of what Matt Derrick has to tell you over at ChiefsDigest.com. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing pretty well, Ryan. How about yourself?
I'm keeping it together. I'm anxiously counting down the days till we see somebody in uniform. What is it?
Getting
The
close.
21st? Is that the report date for the quarterbacks?
Getting close. Yep. 21st, 22nd. Yep.
I'm ready. I'll feel a lot better then, I think. But that said, they've been in uniform a little bit through OTAs, and I'm really interested to see. We talked about questions this week on Locked On Chiefs, and I want to kind of expand on that because I have some questions myself. Folks, if you are new, like, sub, and hit the bell notification so you can see Matt all the time. One position in particular, we talked about it a little bit on Locked On Chiefs, but the guy that I get a lot of question marks that I don't feel is getting as much oomph from what the talk is about him, Jerick McKinnon. I think he can have a bigger role in this. I think they might only keep 3 running backs on the 53, at least initially. And I think he has to be one of them. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. I would expect that the Chiefs would keep 3 running backs plus the fullback with Michael Burton. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Darrell Williams, and Jerick McKinnon look like your top 3. And I think injury is the only thing that would disrupt that. And McKinnon during OTAs, the speed is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it jumps out at you. And clearly the Chiefs were trying to figure out, what they've gotten him, how he could factor in. And he had a lot of opportunities, not only, because remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't there for a little bit of OTAs, and Darrell Williams even, missed a practice or 2 as well. So, we even got to see one day where Jerick McKinnon was, the number 1 back. And so that meant he got a lot of opportunities during OTAs. And there is no doubt. I mean, Andy Reid is going to have a wonderful time coming up some ways to throw him the football. I'm interested to see what maybe he can do as a traditional running back. But you're right. I mean, as far as a back out of the backfield, McKinnon in his career, I mean, that's where he has been most explosive. And I think the Chiefs can absolutely take advantage of that. And it's something that I think that they are really looking forward to seeing.
I'm glad you bring it to Andy Reid, because in the back of my mind, that's always the X factor. And that's honestly the thing that I felt kind of slipped away a little bit last year, is the creativity in the run portion of it. Yes, there were the underhand tosses and that kind of stuff, but we didn't see as much varying outside the standard inside-outside zone for Andy in the run game. And with McKinnon, with Clyde, trying to expand his role. And now with what I think should be an H-back role for Noah Gray, not just lining up as the split out, wide tight end or whatever you want to call it. Like, it feels like there's a lot of opportunities for new creativity from Andy Reid. Do you think that that's the direction he wants to go in?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And honestly, I mean, you talk about H-back and even Noah Gray. I'm thinking H-back Travis Kelce is something you might see at times too. I mean, I think that, that's something that, I think that the Chiefs are looking at is, how can they put their weapons into some unpredictable positions? I mean, I'm not saying this is going to be an all the time kind of a thing, but I think that's a question that Andy Reid's probably asking himself a little bit this offseason, is just how can we use some of these guys that we have in some unpredictable locations and different ways? And you're right. I mean, now, with Noah, they really got a guy there that they really like, they feel like matches up really well into some specific situations. And you're right. I mean, if this is a guy that you can get out there on some, maybe even the secondary linebacker, because, you're talking about some 12 looks that you're putting out there, and Travis Kelce is getting some bracket coverage, suddenly you might be able to get Noah Gray into some really favorable matchups. And I think that's also, what they see with all of these secondary targets. McKinnon fits in that category. I mean, maybe even Clyde himself. How can you put these guys into some spots where they're going to get some, disproportionate matchups?
Right.
And I think you do that by just, being a little bit more creative with the lineup and where you slot them on the field.
When we come to that part of it, it takes an orchestration inside between the tackles, between all the linemen, in order to accomplish that. And I know that we've talked a little bit about how this feels like there should be more power and gap schemes just based on the skill sets of the guys that they have starting. But that creativity, I think that opens up for players when they get in the Reid system. I think we see players really expand their capabilities by trying new things because they're playing for Andy and Andy, to be honest. So for me, do you feel that while they're altering things, that there's still going to be that element of straight ahead power, or is it trying to supplement the misdirection that we always see and really expand on that aspect of it?
Yeah, it's a good question because, in the NFL, you don't see a lot of teams that, try to be a little bit of everything. I mean, when we're talking about gap versus zone, I mean, usually it's you're one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I really get the sense that the Chiefs want to try and be a little bit of both. If for no other reason, then they've got personnel that, frankly, at this point, they've got an offense that's built for a zone game, frankly, between the 20s. And what they've never been able to do is be able to play that power gap football down close to the goal line. That's what they're trying to do. So, I mean, I see them wanting to have it both ways, and maybe that's a little bit of have your cake and eat it too. I mean, we'll see. But then again, I mean, you talk about the changes, and we talked about the other day, that I'm wondering if the screen game might, fade away a little bit this year. Part of that's because of the offensive line. I mean, they don't have an offensive line that's built as much for the screen game and running downfield and making some blocks. So I feel like, that may be something that gives way. And I get the sense that they want to be a little bit of everything. And that's probably what they're best at. But, the converse to that is that if you try to be good at a little bit of everything, that maybe you aren't great at any one thing. And that could be a shortcoming. But, once again, I mean, with this offense, there's not a lot of shortcomings. So if anybody can get away with it, I think Andy Reid can with this personnel.
I would think so too. So when we look at these groupings, you're thinking more 12 personnel. I'm wondering if we don't see more stacks out wide, where if you are going to have a receiver there that maybe isn't the X weapon that you're hoping for, at least you can run some screen action on doubles out to the wide side and get Tyreek or Hardman a kind of a free look with some big wide receiver in front of them. That might work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what they're hoping that maybe they can get. I mean, with some of the personnel that they've got. We've talked about the fact that, they are kind of missing that big physical presence at the receiver position. But you know what? Maybe Noah Gray fills that. I mean, maybe he becomes, adds a little bit more physicality, not because, he's the kind of tight end that you're going to put in line to push some people around. Not that, but it's just that with his frame, with his body, with his, I think, muscle, he could be a little bit more of that. And so maybe even when you're talking about even Noah Gray and Travis Kelce being out there in the field, yeah, it's going to be 12 personnel, but it might not be traditional 12 personnel. I mean, because both those guys are essentially big receivers.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that part. To combat big receivers, you have to have corners that can hold up to that. And we saw the departure of Bashaud Breeland now. It just seems that they're doubling down on what I think is emphasizing safety play over the top to kind of direct corner play. And I won't say that this group is small. Snead and Ward have good height. I think Baker and Hughes have functional height at least, but they don't seem very concerned about playing the physical game against the other opponents, particularly in the AFC West, like the Keenan Allens and the Suttons in Denver. Like there seems like there's a mismatch of where Spagnuolo's concept is going versus what we're seeing around the league, trying to combat these other wide receiving groups.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, to me, a little bit of that just goes with how the Chiefs are spending their money. Mm-hmm. When one, you're putting your money into your quarterback, that's one thing. But then on defense, most of their money is going to be tied up in their pass rush and Tyrann Mathieu. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to go affordable elsewhere. Well, length is something that at least, is somewhat affordable. You can get some guys that are kind of long, and that's what the Chiefs have. I mean, Ward, Snead, Fenton are not necessarily huge players, but at least they play with a lot of length. I mean, they've got long arms, they've got good physicality, so they can kind of close some distances. They've got those things in their favor because, with the resources that the Chiefs have for the corner position, you're not going to get shut down corners. You're not going to get somebody that can just absolutely take away a receiver. Hey, maybe Snead's going to grow into that. I mean, there's certainly an upside there. So I'm not going to rule that out. But you're right. I mean, what the Chiefs are hoping to do defensively is get after people with their pass rush, play safeties over the top, and just don't let anybody beat you and occasionally come up with some turnovers. I mean, that is their strategy. And you're right. I mean, they're a little bit maybe lagging in the corner spot, but at least what they're doing is they're kind of taking advantage of what's affordable and what they can fit in with Spagnuolo's scheme.
So not a concern right now for you.
The corner position, to me, the biggest concern is numbers, because you've got a lot of question marks. I mean, Baker is a question mark because not 100% healthy yet. I mean, they're hoping that before the beginning of training camp that, he's able to make some cuts and run full speed. But maybe certainly a pup list candidate for the beginning of camp. And, and with, the other corners, I mean, there's still a lot of question marks. So, they've got a little bit of faith in their top three guys. But again, Rashad Fenton had a really nice season last year. I mean, I think it's even a little bit underrated, how well he played, with the other guys in there. And Ward probably had a little bit of a step backwards last season. But if those three don't come through, I mean, if for any reason one of them were to regress or gets hurt, that's where I think the biggest concern for the Chiefs at corner is.
Yeah, it's about health. I agree with you. And I think a lot of people discount Fenton's contribution because I think he is up there. Naming 3 starters at corner is pretty standard across the league now. He's one of them as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully they can keep him healthy. Thank you for all of your insights, and we'll hit you up for some more next week.
Sounds good, Ryan. Always enjoy it.
ChiefsDigest.com, folks. Get all the information over there. Thank you for watching this one. Like, sub, and do the stuff. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.